state, which we still are nation states. And with that understanding, they were the diplomats and the representatives of each state, and there to do the state's business, not necessarily do the business of the people that the representatives were there for. So essentially, we no longer, after the framing of the Constitution, have the luxury of having representatives for our state in our federal government. Now, when the Article 5 was written, we did that. We had the luxury of having state senators that could be fired at will for not doing the business of the state in a proper way. We can't do that anymore because they're now elected by the people. So they stand totally independent. And the scare for me is the fact that because they act totally independent today, regardless of what the state would address the U.S. senators to represent them in a certain way in the federal government, they ignore that. Claire McCaskill don't care about Proposition C. She just goes ahead and does what she wants to do. Nobody can recall her like we used to have that luxury. So when Article 5 was written, we had that luxury. We no longer have that. So now we basically don't have representatives for the state. So my question is, if we no longer really have representatives of the state in our federal government, what makes us think that a constitutional convention would provide representation for each state?
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, so are you asking, just to make sure I understand the question, are you asking what makes us think that each state would have representation at the convention or in whatever form of government?
In the convention itself specifically, because we're supposed to have delegates. I don't know where it's written that we're supposed to have delegates. It's up to the Congress, which is the House and the Senate. Now, we would have delegates because our senators representing our state would be there. But now they're taken away from us and blended into the House almost because they're not there to represent the state anymore. So who is actually going to be a delegate for the state of Missouri? How many delegates does each state get? And who says how many they get? Okay. And then if they have a delegation that makes a decision in this convention, 51% is going to run the show, 2/3, 3/4, how much? So all of a sudden,
okay,
so
the question that I hear is kind of what would a convention actually look like?
How are we going to get represented is my question as a state?
Okay, well, there are a couple of ways that it could happen. All right. So the first thing to understand is that, and I don't think that there's any disagreement on what I'm about to say. When Congress calls together a convention, Congress does not get to choose the people that will be there. Congress gets to set some parameters around it, how those people will be chosen.
Where is that written?
Well, it's not specifically spelled out,
so
but
we're just assuming this.
We are assuming. That's true.
Are we assuming an awful lot?
I don't think so. No, I don't think that there is anyone who would suggest that if Congress is going to call together a convention, that Congress would decide that they were going to get to choose who the delegates were.
Why not?
Because that's never been the way the conventions have been done.
Congress has a gavel.
Well, this is the thing, though. This is the thing. I think that what you're concerned about is such a step beyond the way that conventions have ever been done that I don't think that there's a serious concern that that's something that Congress might do.
You may not be concerned, but I think a lot of American people are.
Okay. Well, I'll do that. I'll try to explain as best I can what the consensus is that a convention would look like, and
again,
we'll go ahead.
Pure speculation. Explain to everybody that it is only pure speculation.
There are a lot of unanswered questions, for sure, but presumably.